New York City FC, they struggle without a striker. The U.S. men's national team struggles and then doesn't. And a very, very familiar face is back in Major League Soccer. That and much more on NYCFC Views.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer.
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
All right. Here's your Sick Podcast after training on a Wednesday up in Orangeburg. I'm Glenn Crooks along with Roberto Abramowitz, where we did get a chance to go to training, view training, and spoke to Nick Cushing. He did his weekly presser, but then I got my pregame show. It's an exclusive interview where we talk about a lot of different things. So we're going to share some of that in a moment. But really, right before we got to training, or there were certainly some reports about Maxime Chanot returning to MLS with LAFC, where they now have a French brigade. If Olivier Giroud comes in the summer, which has been reported, from very reliable sources. But Maxime Chanot, who is, you'd have to say, is pretty much a New York City legend, Roberto, is now a member of LAFC. Here's the, Shane, if we could skip ahead by a bunch, there's the official announcement about Chanot. So, Roberto, what do you think? Well, Roberto, we can't hear you. So this is what happens during, we're all live here today, so we know that, well, there he goes. So I'll give you what I thought. I was pretty surprised, but I also understand that he wanted to keep playing. He was still playing for Luxembourg. In fact, this past international break, he played and got red carded. I think it was in the 56th minute of their match, which was a critical match in their effort to qualify for Europe, which they now no longer will. Georgia, for the first time ever, that country is qualifying for the Euros. And when Roberto gets back in, one of the things we'll do is have maybe a chance to look at another part of this Chanot going to LAFC and leaving his hometown club. I mean, that was really what we sort of heard, is that he was going back to his hometown club. And Roberto, I intended to get to Maxime Chanot a little bit later on, but it came right up. But here's what the club, AC Ajaccio, if that's the way it's pronounced, put out this, and then Hudson River Blue translated for us. This is from the club where Chanot is leaving and now going to LAFC. His presence would have been negative and even counterproductive for the group. Ajaccio does not conceive of keeping a player who does not honor his commitments and who cannot give himself 100% to defend his colors. All I have to say about that, Roberto, is wow.
I mean, not only did they throw him under the bus, they went into the bus, drove over him, and then backed up just to make sure.
Yeah. Well, he played 23 times, 21 starts in this season after he moved back. It's a beautiful spot. I remember when he went back there, he called it home, or that's where he spent a lot of his upbringing. And it's this island, and it's just beautiful. But he will no longer be there. And I suppose his wife is his agent. So she's also certainly a part of this, that, he moved back there partially for family reasons. At least that's what he told us. But the family, I guess, is going to move to the West Coast. And, New York City doesn't play LAFC this year, at least not in the regular season. The only way they could play is in the playoffs, maybe in Leagues Cup. I don't even know.
Those are the only two, correct.
Yeah, okay. So so that's it. Let's just leave Chanot alone and get back to the team he used to play for, and won an MLS Cup, the New York City Football Club. I actually don't want to spend too much time on this game, the 1-0 loss to Cincinnati. And the reason being is we've got so much else to cover today. But it was the international break, yet 26 of the 29 teams in MLS were playing games. And some suffered more than others in terms of players lost. Now, we know and read about and heard all about Philadelphia, the Union. They lost a lot of players, a similar amount to New York City, and managed to come up with a pretty resounding victory in their match. New York City, meanwhile, they were out 2 strikers, down 2 right backs, and were forced to change their shape and really just didn't get it going. The only chance I can remember that was really, really a chance was Santi Rodriguez's header, which Celentano saved pretty comfortably. He had to dive to his left, but it just didn't have a lot of velocity on it. So we're going to, well, let me just play this one Nick thing from my interview with him. No, this is from the presser. Excuse me. This is the post-game presser, I think. Here he is.
An international window, we lose 6 of our guys. We lose 2 guys that are important to us when we're thin anyway. We have no recognised striker really on the roster today to pick from. So, well, in the fantastic wisdom of our league, we decided to play our Open Cup game, schedule our Open Cup game on Thursday, and put our first team game on Saturday. And the majority of those guys played 90 minutes against a strong Motown team 2 days ago. So it was highly unlikely that any of them were going to be available. So we had a choice really, put 4 on the bench or 5 on the bench, or give the guys an experience. But it's difficult when you are already in an international window and then you get a game 2 days before your game. It's almost impossible to schedule a full roster.
Yeah, and I was actually at the game. You were flying back from Florida, the New York City FC2 team.
Yes.
They beat FC Motown. So our live podcast last week, they were playing that night, NYCFC2 at Montclair State. And at the same time, the U.S. men's national team was playing Jamaica. So there was a little iPad that was out. And so we were all, and the entire first team staff was there, and the communication staff. So we were all kind of watching NYCFC2 and also watching the U.S. men. And we're gonna talk about that game in a little bit. But it comes across, and this is where the dissenters, the cushing out folks, of course, say, well, that's just an excuse. But the reality is, and I've been singing this song since I really started following MLS closely, which is 2015 when I started this gig with New York City. I don't get it. I mean, before Leagues Cup, you still played on the international break, so it wasn't about congestion. Now they're talking about congestion. That's why the U.S. Open Cup is a shambles in terms of MLS teams. So I don't know why you can't sort it out that teams don't play during the international break. Cincinnati was missing Miles Robinson, and that was it.
That was it.
That
was it. And I mean, for New York City, I think, what was it? Total of 7 players were missing, including Keaton Parks, who was out with a red card. So, yeah, and they had to figure it out. They had to change their shape. There was a lot of, different factors going in there. I mean, they played okay. They didn't create a ton, which has been the story of the season so far on the road. They create a lot more when they've played at home. Now their next 5 games are at home. So after Inter Miami. So, we'll see what's going to happen with the team then. But, Cincinnati's a good team. Up front, they still have the league MVP in Lutra Costa, and he made 1 play, right? And that was all it took for them to be able to get a victory. So, and sadly for New York City, they didn't have anybody who could make 1 play like that. And, another, road struggle after all the struggles last year. And you hope that they figure it out. It's still early in the season. They're not far away from being in the mix. So when they get these home games going, we'll see how that goes. So for their 4 out of their first 6 games have been, once they play Inter Miami, will have been on the road. And
yeah, and a lot
5 in a row at home.
Yeah, and they're tough road games. I mean, at Charlotte, I don't think you look at that as go like, oh, that's insurmountable. Although they had 60,000 people for the home opener. But then you at St. Louis is rough.
Yeah.
And at Miami is rough, and at Cincinnati is rough. So, it's a difficult start. There's a little question about that, but still only one road win since July 1st, 2023 at Montreal. Only one road win in a year plus. Nick's record.
No, that was the only road win. That was it. There hasn't been one since. That was the only one of all of 2023 plus.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know how I worded that yet. Well,
Yeah.
Nick's road record is 6 wins, 21 losses, 10 ties. And 5 of those road wins were in 2022 when he was under the interim status. So they've got to figure out the road. But if you're not going to figure out the road, you better damn figure out home. And that's coming up soon. And you mentioned it, 5 straight coming up. Injuries, that's a factor now because Burke Reese went down and Kevin O'Toole suffered a concussion. Here's Nick in regard to the injuries. Burke Reese had to leave the game, and he's had something that you said he's been dealing with for a little while. What's his status right now?
He never trained. He hasn't trained all week, so he is offloaded at the minute, waiting to make a decision tomorrow, Friday, to see whether we put him in or whether we offload him completely for the week, because we're just in a place where we're 50-50. Do we offload him to try and get rid of the problem, or do we try and manage the problem in the sense of pain tolerance and minutes? I haven't made that decision yet, but I think we'll work through that with the staff this afternoon or maybe early tomorrow morning.
And then Kevin O'Toole came off with a concussion protocol. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, it means you go through a 7-stage concussion protocol, and the final stage being available for the game. And if you fail a stage, I think starts at how you feel on day 1 versus how you do exercise on day 2 versus how you do a different level of exercise on the ball, and then you have to do you're exposed to different levels of exposure that will affect or see how present the concussion is. And if at any stage you fail, so if you fail at stage 3, you go all the way back to stage 1. And it's a protocol and a process that we have full support in and full focus on, because Kevin is the most important guy in this. So he hasn't failed a stage yet, but it doesn't mean that he won't. So we'll just be patient with him.
Yeah, so there's your concussion protocol, well explained by Nick. And if he hasn't failed, I'm not sure when he started the protocol, but let's say he started Monday. Today's Wednesday, so maybe he's in part 3 of the 7 parts. So he's out for the weekend at Miami, and then the hope is that maybe he could return to training the following week.
Glenn, maybe I misunderstood, or I just understood it differently. I don't think he said that he might be out for the weekend. I thought he said that there was a chance that he might play still. So that's what I got from that. That would be still a chance, but he has to pass all those 7 stages. If he misses one, then it goes from the beginning again. But
it's a daily basis. So the game was on Saturday. So if you go to,
he starts Sunday.
And Saturday's the 7th day. Let me make an educated guess and opinion, and I'll say it quite strongly. Kevin O'Toole will not be playing this weekend. Nick didn't say that. I didn't talk to an athletic trainer. The dude had a concussion a week ago. He's not, and he's had a previous concussion. He's not playing this weekend.
I would think that that's the most likely scenario. But right. I wouldn't get. But I won't give it as an absolute.
No, well, you're taking it probably the proper way. I'm giving you my education on this concussions, and I've dealt with a bunch of them, not personally, but with players. And you heard Nick say, Kevin comes first. We're not going to take a chance with him. So
no,
at Miami, that's the next game, Roberto. So, but let's see this. Shane, do you have the Lionel Messi tweet, which basically says he ain't playing? Now, I don't know Inter Miami News Hub, but this is from a few days back, Roberto. I don't know if you've heard anything else definitive about Messi's chances of playing. I think Tata Martino pretty much, I don't think you needed to read too deeply between the lines to know what he's what he says regarding this weekend. So now, but you also learned something which I found, wasn't it you that told me this today, that if he missed Argentina. He couldn't play. So tell us what, as you understand it, what he has to do now.
No, so I spoke with John Rojas about this, where he texted me, and he said that because he missed the Argentina game, then he's got to sit out the next 3 games that would be with Inter Miami starting in last week. So that means that he's got to also miss New York City. That would be game number 2. Then there's the next game, and that he probably will be ready, because I had heard that he had started training. Now, I called Inter Miami today, and I've sent them a couple of texts, but I haven't heard back from them to be able to confirm this news. But everything indicates that he will not play on Sunday. And I just checked prices as far as ticket prices are concerned for the game, and that's a pretty good indicator. And they're down from the 240s, 250s down to 140. So most people are starting to think that that Lionel will not be there.
Wow.
So we've done our due diligence as best as possible. Maybe Inter Miami at some point will get back to us, and then we'll tweet something out or post it on Facebook, Instagram, or Threads or whatever. If they write me today, while we're on the air, then
we're live.
I'll let you know.
We are live for the 3rd consecutive week here on NYCFC Views. I like doing it live, Roberto. It's just like if you lose your mic, you just have to deal with it. It's not
not only did I lose my mic, I couldn't hear a word you said, so I had to actually leave and come back, and then it all worked.
Benefits.
I did not hear your intro, so sorry. I have no idea what you said. You could have cursed me out. You could have said all sorts of nasty things about me, and I would have been smiling, thinking, "Oh, he's quite being nice."
It might be, it may have been my best one. Who knows? Internationals. So the internationals, there's still 2 of them that haven't returned to training yet. The strikers, Monsef Bakar and Jovan Mijatovic. However, they're expected to be back. Well, Christian McFarlane. I understand. But those 2, I think, are a little bit more critical to the process, because playing without a striker last week was not a successful venture. But now there's issues at the back. If Risa is out, and it sure sounds like he's out. If O'Toole is out, it sure sounds like he's going to be out, in my opinion. But Ilinic and Gray are back, the right backs. So when you look at the configuration, do you put Strahinja, Tennessee in a situation at a back 4 to have to play a full 90 at Miami in that heat, when by halftime last week he had both hands on both knees, was bending over, he was shot. And the fact that he made it through that game was pretty remarkable, I thought, because he's not fit. So, but here's Nick Cushing earlier today talking about this situation at the back and what he might do.
Going through that now is, do we play a back 3 again and play wing backs, because we have a lot of players that have the profile of wing backs. We can play Hannes Wolf there, we can play Andres Jason there, we've got Mitja Ilinic. Or do we go back 4 and put Tavon at left back maybe and play Strahinja and Thiago? And I think that's going to be based on relationships. We're trying to work through that in the training to see, can you just stick a back 4 together and hope they play well against the Miami team? That's the conversation. And if not, then we will go with a back 3. That can be a back 5 if needed to be.
Tadasijevic, I don't know if you agree with my comment about his fitness, but is he ready to play a full match at central defense, do you think?
Well, I think ultimately the problem with Strahinja is he hasn't played, and the visa process from Serbia to America was so it was longer than what we've experienced, whether we've gone European or South American previously. So he hadn't played any football. So whether he is fully fit to play 90 as a central defender in a back 4, will be something we're going to have to work through quickly. I totally agree. It's when you don't play, you can't be fit. So it's not a negative towards him. It's more just a reaction to the process.
So I don't. If I'll tell you what, if Thiago Martins stays at right central defense and Tadasijevic plays left central defense and Tavon Gray is the left back, I don't know about you, but I don't like that very much.
Well, I think he's got a lot of options. What he can do now, what he decides
I don't
to
think
do,
that should be one of them. I don't think that should be one of them.
Right.
But they'll train. They'll train, and he'll see. But
exactly. So he can go with 3 in the back if he wants, or he can go with 4 in the back if he puts Tavon Gray there, because Tavon plays defensively well no matter where you put him. That's not. That's a given. He's a gifted defensive player, no doubt. And if he's got to stop whoever it is on the right side, because it's probably not going to be Messi, so then we'll see who's going to line up over there and who he has to go against. But he can go that way. He can also go with 3 in the back, and then he can put Andres Jason on the left side. And Andres Jason, he can attack either side. I mean, remember that when he was supposed to make his debut for New York City as a rookie, right? When Ronnie Dyla was talking about how he had played so well during preseason, and he was most likely to start. Eventually, he didn't, but it was going to be as a left-sided attacker. So if he can play, he can play the left side easily. Not a problem for him. And so he definitely has options. I'm sort of surprised that one of the things that he didn't talk about, and maybe he should, and maybe it was just because of the way we were asking him questions, was the fact that you've got James Sands there, and you can play Sands in the back, and you can play with Keaton Parks and Andres Perea. So I mean, that's another option that he has. So, there are options. There may not all of them be ideal. Injuries happen, and all of a sudden you lose half your defense, in one game because of injuries. So, we're going to wind up seeing what's happening. And when it comes to Tanasijevic, defensively, when people were going at him one-on-one, I thought he did very well. The problem that he ran into, and maybe it was because of physical fatigue and mental fatigue, was his passing. And he just turned the ball over quite often. And I think that maybe if he's going to play and that starts happening, it's sort of like, just get rid of the ball. Don't, just get rid of it. We'll adjust.
No, what happened, the way we read it on our side during the commentary is that it took him a while to catch up to the speed of the game, and then I thought he was okay after that. I understand the giveaways that you're talking about. I think that's just getting used to the system. That's why I think at Miami, throwing him into a back four on the left side, not his strength. It's like when Maxime Chanot used to play on the left. It wasn't favorable because he would use the outside of his right to try to clear things instead of using his left. It's just, it's not favorable. And you're right.
Then switch. Then you don't have to put him on the left because you have the other central defender, right, who can move to the left because that's where he started playing. When he was playing with Chanot in his first year, that's what Thiago Martins was playing. If it was with Chanot, he played on the left. If it was Collins, he played on the right. Yeah. He can play both.
I understand that, but at the back, the relationships at the back are the most important relationships in your team. Most important. It's not even, it's not even close. So you're going to move Martins from the right to the left. You take him away from Ilinic, who needs him. Ilinic has often spoke about how Martins helps him. So you're going to leave Ilinic without Martins. You're going to put Tanasijevic next to Ilinic. Now he likes him because he's got this Balkan, relationship going on. So they like each other, that's for sure. But they haven't played together. And then you're gonna throw Tavon Gray on the left, where he struggles serving with the right. So I just think you've got to be as simplistic, and maybe sticking with the back three is the thing to do.
Maybe after all of that, I would. You've just made a really good argument for them to play with the back three.
Yeah, maybe I did. So there you go. So let's leave this, but it's tricky. It's tricky. And McFarlane's return also is important because there you go. Now, and it's a 17-year-old. He's played 3 games, 2 of them full matches, including against France on Tuesday. And then he's got to fly back. He's going to be worn out, man. He's only 17. He's going to be worn out. So I don't think you can have great expectations for him to play anything near a full match, but maybe he can come in and make his debut.
Let me ask you this. Considering who he played this weekend for England, right? Considering who he's played, do you think that there's a difference in quality versus who he's going to play in Miami right now? Because it's not going to be Messi, right? Well, so, I would think that maybe you do throw McFarlane in there.
It's men versus how he does. It's men versus boys, though. It's the U17s that he was involved with, the U17 Euro. And and he scored a goal, by the way. Well, we're gonna review all the internationals in just a moment. I also wanted to point out, Roberto, that the two guys that we've been, one in particular you've been waiting to see, and then Ariel Hudas, he's been waiting to see. The other guy is Malachi Jones, their top draft pick, and Augustine Ojeda, who they both made their debuts, and maybe didn't have enough time to contribute to an extent where they could have an impact. But it was good to see them on there. And I asked Nick, I think you were in the room when I asked him who would win a foot race, because these guys are considered two of the top guys, sprinters, around. We've heard all about their pace. And he added Thiago Martins and Micha Ilinic into the fray. He said we should race the four of them. But those are the four fastest guys on the team.
What about Tavon? Don't you think Tavon should be in there?
He didn't mention Tavon. I don't know.
And I was sort of surprised.
Well, he was maybe in his mind he was freaking out that he had to play Tavon on the left side as a possibility, and couldn't quite come up with the speed factor for Tavon. We're just having fun, Tavon. I love you.
No, but here's the thing: is that Tavon, if he plays the left side, I'm more concerned about his defending. Let everybody else decide, what's going to happen with the attack. If he can't serve the ball with his left leg accurately, right, then you work on other things. Because New York City isn't exactly a team that is based in England, that is just pumping balls into the box all the time. That's not exactly their strength. So there are ways to get around. I'm more concerned about him defending and not getting beat, and let the attackers attack.
Second game for Ojeda. You're right. But he came in he had a 16-minute appearance. Forgive me on that. But it was Malachi Jones' debut.
Yes, it was his debut, and I want to see more.
Yeah, Ojeda came in against St. Louis, right? 16 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I believe so.
And I don't know how many touches he had on the ball, but it was a forgettable appearance. Sorry, Augustine. Wow, I'm coming across as negative. I don't mean to be. It's just there's you're 1-4, and you really got to sort this out for this match in Miami, because it's important. And Messi's not playing, so take advantage of that. I don't know. Luis Suarez, huh? Well,
the Red Bulls did.
How about that?
Smoked them
4-0. That's wild.
Not only it was how it was wild. So you have, first of all, it's in the rain. It's pouring rain. We weren't there. Obviously, we were in Cincinnati at the time, but it's pouring rain. That's one. Then two, the Red Bulls score early, and so that sets a tone for the game. You have Dante Van Zier with 4 assists in the game, and one of my favorite players in MLS, Lewis Morgan. Ever since we saw him in that game against New York City, when the first time he played New York City for Inter Miami, and he had a really good game. I believe he had 2 goals there. I started really watching him, and oh my God, this guy's really good. And sadly for him, he hasn't been able to be healthy. Last year, he missed most of the year. He comes back and he scores a hat trick. So,
hey, how about
them? There's going to be guys for Inter Miami that are going to be back, though, that that weren't available, including Calendar and Goal, is going to be back for them.
Yeah, well, Emil Forsberg was absent for the Red Bulls, and he is by far their talisman. He's the guy that's really making it go. So the fact that he produced like that without him was
they really missed him.
Here, there was a really interesting story for this Red Bull game, and I want to share it. I know we're the NYCFC views, but let's take a view at 15-year-old, now 16-year-old Julian Hall. Now, this was a pretty incredible story. And I didn't know this. I live in New Jersey, and I worked when I was 12 years old, in a spot where I didn't know there were child labor laws in New Jersey. But apparently, you can't work after 6 p.m. in Jersey if you're under the age of 16. So this kid, Julian Hall, couldn't debut because they were all night games until this past Saturday. It was a 2 p.m. Eastern kickoff. And so Julian Hall, who the very next day, I think, turned 16, but as a 15-year-old, he was able to finally play for the Red Bulls and come in this match with Inter Miami. So I thought that was.
So Glenn, can I just say something? I'm sure you were aware that there are child labor laws in New
Hell
Jersey,
no.
as there are in the rest of the country. Now, what you might not have been aware of is exactly what they were, but you were aware that they had child labor laws in New Jersey. I presume that glad they have them all over the country.
Well, when you say aware, I mean, I worked 12 hours a day at a golf course. I was 12 years old. I don't know. I mean, no one said anything to me. I got to play golf at the end of the day, 9 holes. It was beautiful,
And then they put you back in your cage, threw you some
something
food.
like
Is
that.
that the way that worked?
Pembroke Country Club in Basking Ridge. I hope I don't get them in trouble, but
God Almighty, what are you doing?
that was only I don't even know how many years. How many years ago was that? Well, over too many years ago.
Over 45, let's say.
Yeah, it's that, and that's being kind. How about? Did you see Ryan Mara got a shutout? He got the shutout. He played in goal. Former New York City guy, came over on loan that first year for New York City, but he's Red Bull's property, and his first shutout since 2020. But nice for him. And so NYC Red Bulls City Field, May 18th. That's the first of the Hudson River Derby, and then September the 28th.
That was funny that you mentioned that, because I don't remember the last time that the Hudson River Derby was played first in New York and then in New Jersey. I don't remember that, because it always seems that the first game is at Red Bull Arena. So it's nice for them to start it off in New York City for a change.
New York City's record at Red Bull Arena against the Red Bulls: 2 wins, 12 losses, 2 draws in all competitions. All right, let's get away from that. And what? Oh, the internationals. I think we should review this, because I think the New York City webpage actually wrote up something today. I hadn't seen it until almost just before we started. We are live. This is NYCFC Views. Thank you so much for being with us. Monsef Bakrar played 2 friendlies. Algeria beat Bolivia 3-2. Bakrar came in as a sub in the 70th minute. And then Bakrar got an assist on a tying goal in a 3-3 draw with South Africa, another friendly. Again, he came in as a sub, and it was at the Nelson Mandela Stadium, pretty cool stadium. Talked to Nick about this, and he said he really enjoyed seeing Bakrar, how he played, but he said he missed 2 big chances that he should have scored. And my response, you got to listen to the pregame show this weekend, or maybe I'll put it up on Twitter. But my response was like, well, that's pretty much what we've been getting. And Nick really turned, Nick's, he wants to make it all positive. And he goes, look, the guy's getting it done as far as getting the chances. It's going to happen. So Nick is convinced it's going to happen. But how about he gets these chances on the international level, and still Nick's exact quote was, he should have scored twice. So, but he assisted on this game-tying goal, and these were just friendlies. But Tavon Gray, 90th minute against the U.S. with Jamaica.
Time-killing sub. And then all of a sudden, he's got to play overtime.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you go back, you rewind the tape, Tavon had a chance to just clear the ball, a mile into the other end, and he started dribbling out of the back, and he stumbled. I don't know if you remember that. And that's what eventually led to the corner kick, which led to the tying goal, and then Jamaica had nothing left in the tank. So I'm not blaming it on Tavon. I'm just saying, if you look back,
you're not making
he had a chance
today,
to,
are you?
He had a chance to just drive. Well, this is late game tactics, up a goal. These things should be ingrained in your head like I don't know, for the time you're whatever, and it's the kind of thing that should be reviewed. So I don't know if the coaching staff reviewed it or they were prepared for it, but anyway, and then he played, got it in the 90th minute in the win. So Jamaica got a medal as they won the 3rd place game against Panama. And we're going to get to the U.S. in a little bit. Jovan Mijatovic played in 2 of the 3 games for the Serbia under-19s. These were UEFA European Championship qualifiers. They lost to Denmark and then tied Greece 3-3. The middle game, he had to sit out from yellow card suspension. So our boy Mijatovic, we see he's got a little chip on his shoulder. So we'll see how it goes at MLS.
He's a strong kid, Mijatovic. He really is. I mean, he looks like a little bull, and sometimes he looks like a bull in a china shop. So I can't wait for him just to be able to play
I
as
know.
a 9 and see what he can do. He's only 18. There's a long way to go for him. So patience, everybody.
Patience. Another young guy, Micha Ilinic, played the full 90 at right back for the Slovenia U21s. They beat Bosnia Herzegovina. These are UEFA 21 qualifiers. These are huge games, and they'll play France on September the 5th, and that's to win the group, probably Group H in this qualification group. But Slovenia is at the top of the table, 3 points ahead of France.
That's
How cool is
awesome.
that?
By the way, speaking of him, okay, we were watching practice today, and you were in setting up for a lot of this, but they were doing crossing drills and all that. That was fun to watch, and he was like really, he was just nailing it, putting the ball exactly where it should have been. So that was nice to see, and because that was one of the things that New York City in the first few games couldn't get done. They couldn't get some crosses, to the proper place into the box until Fernandez did with O'Toole's goal. So, it was nice to see.
These experiences are invaluable on the international level. And even though they were missing a game for New York City and their absence certainly may have contributed to the 1-0 defeat in Cincinnati, Christian McFarlane, U7 England, we talked about him, the Euro U17 qualification, 3 matches. England beat Hungary 5-0. McFarlane scored the 4th goal in that, played the full match. The opening match, England 5, Northern Ireland 1. He subbed on for that. And then he played the full 90 against France. France beat England 2-1, but England had a red card in the 25th minute.
Ouch.
And he played left back and then moved up to left wing to try to get a little bit more on the attack in that game. So
I have to tell you, okay, I really hope they play 4 in the back and he plays. I want to see him. I want to give the kid a shot.
Yeah,
let's see what he can do. Give the kid a shot.
Well, the guy who used to play left back, Gudmundur Tor Aronson, he's 31 now, and he played 90 minutes for Iceland in a 4-1 win at Israel, and that's Euro qualification semi. And then they lost in the final to Ukraine 2-1. Goody started in that game too. 31-year-old Alexander Collins, 90 minutes at left back. In a back 3, Peru beat Nicaragua in a friendly, and then he didn't play in the next one against the Dominican. And then Maxime Chanot, we started the program off almost with Maxime, 34 years old, got a red card in the 56th minute in the 2-0 loss at Georgia, the team that ended up qualifying out of that
Not your
group.
university, I presume.
Yeah, that's the University of Georgia. Man, I'll tell you, when that university does a fundraiser and beg for money, I've been getting stuff for the last 2 weeks. Every coach, every former player, I've been getting it all. And I contribute to Georgia. I contribute to Rutgers, where I used to coach. And these are the things you should do, I think.
Is that ACC or SEC?
SEC. Yeah.
It is the SEC, right? They're expanding everywhere. I think it's too much now. They've expanded to Europe. It's terrible.
Hey, and we talked about before we go to kicking it around, teenagers, 17-year-old Fidel Barajas, RSL, assisted on both goals. They were down a goal in Vancouver. They came back and won it 2-1. This kid is something to behold. He's really good. Oh, and I wanted to mention Bradley Carnell, the St. Louis coach. This was great. Yeah, I think they played a scoreless draw, I think, with DC United. Maybe it was 1-1. Anyway, he apologized to the fans after the game, not for his team's performance, but because of the way DC United played. They played in this low block. They never and he's just, because it was ugly, he apologized to the fans for how DC United played. How funny is that?
I mean, I think the league should apologize to the fans for DC United and the way they play.
Well, we'll see. We'll get a close-up look
DC
at
United used to be like the gold standard in this league. They really were. They were a big team. Okay, they won 4 championships. Before anybody else won 2. They were literally the gold standard. I mean, they had great players. They were fun to watch. They had tons of people going to the stadium, filling up RFK, and now they're a small team. They act like a small team. They play like a small team. Yeah, they do have Benteke, fine. They brought Rooney in, fine. But they really act like a small team now. It's a shame because you'd love to see them be a big team again, the way they used to be. Different ownership, different way of doing things.
All right, dude, let's kick it around. All right, in a moment, Roberto, we're going to talk about The Athletic, their third annual anonymous survey of MLS executives. They spoke to 30 executives in the sporting departments around MLS. They didn't say they spoke to all of the clubs, but there were 30 executives involved. So we'll get to that because there's always interesting stuff that comes out of that. But first, I want to kick this off with the referees, PSRA, the union, and Pro Referees Management. The union voted to ratify the tentative agreement, which you may have heard, Roberto, was broken by a certain co-host of NYCFC Views.
Yes, and it wasn't me.
And it was, yes. I'm not a story breaker, but I'll take credit for this one, getting this going. And I know enough of these referees, and one of them woke up in the morning and said, "We have a tentative agreement." And I called him up and said, "Are you cool with me putting this out?" Because I wanted to get his blessing first. And he said, "Yeah, go for it, man. It's happening." And then the vote didn't happen until Monday night. That's when the ratification was. And Corey Rockwell, I've been trying to get him on for the last couple of weeks, but actually more than the last couple of weeks, the show I do on Sirius XMFC, to talk about refereeing, all the techniques, and especially in AR, we don't hear much about the AR. We really don't. But now that we've got this strike thing and they ratified the agreement, 23%, well, let's put it this way, 77% agreed to ratify. That means, there were some that didn't like it. So I did this interview yesterday, and here was his response to that.
7%. This is according to Jeff Carlisle, ESPN. 77% of the membership voted yes. That means 23% said no. Do you have any idea what they were most concerned with? What was the contention?
Yeah, I think a few things. I think one of the things that my assistant referee colleagues had voiced is that the desire to get better healthcare benefits for those ARs that choose to go the path of refereeing only. You look at the past few World Cups, and I don't want to call it anybody's personal situation, but the majority of assistant referees that have gone to the women's and men's World Cups do not have full-time jobs outside of soccer. They only referee to really concentrate on that and be the best they can be as possible. And unless you're living in Canada, you're not getting healthcare benefits through Pro. So we were hoping to get that. We did get a little bit of a healthcare fund, which is nice, so we can tap into that. So at least that was increased as a result of these negotiations. But I think that was one of the main things for our ARs, really trying to get better benefits if they wanted to do this on a quote unquote full-time basis.
That's pretty interesting that these ARs who don't get benefits still think of themselves full time. And so, they're putting their full effort into their profession, but not getting benefits. And there are a lot of them who are disgruntled that didn't pass. But, you have to make concessions along the way, Roberto.
Oh, for
sure. And one thing,
Corey voted yes, and he's officiated over 370 MLS games. So it's a tier system. So if you're over 300, he makes the highest salary among ARs in the league. And he got about a $13,000 boost, 30% boost in his salary. Nice. But at the lower end, they got even higher percentage boosts. And that was one area where they succeeded. The ARs are going to make more money, especially those who are younger and have participated in fewer games. And he gets benefits because they have to think of this. He looks at it as a part-time job, and he's done it a long time. He's the head of internal audit for PF Chang's. That's his full-time job. That's his real
nice.
full-time, and he gets benefits, so he
I like
doesn't
their
have to
restaurant
worry
too.
about it. But he's concerned about the others too, and
Well, as you should be, because I can tell you the cost of healthcare is absurd in some of the things, and what insurance covers and what they don't cover. So I fully get it that is a major concern, because the quickest way to go bankrupt in the United States is to get sick, even with health insurance, because they don't always cover everything. And that is the quickest way to go bankrupt. So for them to try to get the best health insurance possible to be able to avoid that sort of thing and, get the right health care is absolutely important and key. And I'm hoping that, they got, better deals as far as that's concerned. I'm happy that they signed a 7-year deal that was first negotiated. I think it was 5, and then it got extended to 7. And I think that was like one of the more important breakthroughs that allowed this thing finally to end.
Well, but that's not. But that was also one of the reasons many of them voted no, is because of the 7-year deal. Because you got 3 World Cups in that period of time. You include the women in there, and there's different situations where you don't. You want to be strong in your negotiating power, and it's. From what I've heard is that it's a pretty good deal for the referees. That's the way they're looking at it, some better than others. But one person on the inside suggested to me that pro referees management is they're doing a jig. They think they really got the best of it. And but talking to Corey, he thinks it was proper to sign it or agree to it and ratify it. And so that's what it is.
I guess at the end, if both parties are equally happy and disappointed, then you basically did fine.
All right. Well, maybe there's more to this as time goes on when we learn a little bit more. But Corey will be doing the RSL match. We don't know who's going to be on the New York City at Inter Miami match yet, but it'll be the regular guys and gals, and we'll go down and hopefully get a chance to say
hopefully that they get a nice round of applause from the fans all around the country.
I believe
because
they will.
It's a hard job. It's a hard job, and God knows it's a thankless job. So for them to get an appreciation, I think that it is absolutely 100% proper. So,
so when you think
out and when they announce the referees, cheer them. Then you can boo them once the game starts, and they call a penalty against your team when the defender holds on to the ball with his hands next to the chest. And then you think that is, should have happened, that was fine.
Well, it's funny. I asked Corey at the end of the interview, if you could change one rule, what would you want it to be? And he talked about handball. And he said, there's been a suggestion that every handball is an indirect free kick. And then you don't have to go crazy about whether it's a penalty or not. And I said, well, that would be pretty entertaining. What's better than an indirect free kick 10 yards from goal or 12 yards from goal, and that wall set up along the goal line. And, it's so that's one thing. Now, Roberto, when you think of AR, what is their most important function in your mind? What do you think?
Offsides.
You got it. So here we go. Corey Burke on offside and the techniques to be the best that you can be in making the call. There he is.
It's so interesting about offside from an assistant referee standpoint is that there's only one referee on the field that can get the offside decision. Typically, I'd say in 99% of the offside decisions, it's only the assistant referee. When it comes to throw-ins, when it comes to boundary line decisions, when it comes to fouls or no fouls, you have a backup plan in case your eyes are wandering, you're screened by a player. You have the referee in the middle that can help out with that, and vice versa. If I get distracted, it's unfortunately it's happened a few times where I'm thinking it's a red throw-in and the referee's in my ear going white. Oh, thank you very much. We'll get that right. So there's a backup plan for almost every other call except offside. That is solely the responsibility of the assistant referee, and that's why it's so important to where that is literally my number one priority when I'm on the field is to get that offside decision correct.
Tell us the technical side of that. How do you train yourself to technically be aware of when the ball is struck and where the player is along that last line, and do the best you can?
Yeah, there are a couple, I won't get too nerdy, hopefully, Glenn, but
I get it, as nerdy as possible.
two techniques I've really used, even if there's a stadium full, and I've refereed in Estadio Azteca with 105,000 people. Despite the crowd, whether it's in Salt Lake or whether it's in San Jose or whether it's in LAFC, you can still hear the kick of the ball, believe it or not, on the field.
Wow.
And that's such a big cue to me to determine offside position. As I'm looking at the second to last defender, I can still hear that thud of the ball to know exactly when it was kicked. So there's that cue. The other thing I do sometimes, a play is coming down my touch line. I need to take a few steps off the line because my peripheral vision can't see what's directly to my left at a 90-degree angle. But if I kind of back up a few steps, now I can see a little bit more of that play coming down. And I can make out colors. I can make out the ball at least. So you'll see me back away from the line every once in a while, just so I can have a better peripheral vision of when that ball is going to be played, just so I can keep my eyes on the second to last defender and the offside line.
Pretty cool. Now,
It's very cool.
I followed this up with he said using the sound of the ball. How about 105,000 at Azteca and he could still hear the ball? But I follow that up by saying, well, what if the ball is struck far away from you, from your touch line?
I heard
and then so you hear it, but the speed of sound versus the speed of light, being able to see across the line, are two different things. And you could actually maybe you hear the ball, but it was actually struck before you hear it, and that's.
Okay. I gotta get in here. I thought it was a really good question. Okay, I was listening to the coaching academy on Sirius XM FC 157 on my way back from practice today.
Nice.
So I heard this, and I thought it was a good question, but also, I don't think, because then you'd have to start doing all the measurements. That the delay from the other side of the field, which is 75 yards away at maximum, right, is going to be significant enough to make a difference. Yes, obviously, speed of light is much faster than the speed of sound, okay?
Yeah.
But it's not like you see lightning hit 3 miles down the line, right, because you have a clear view of lightning, and then you hear the thunder. And then the way to measure how far away the lightning is, how far away the lightning strikes from where your position is by counting the seconds between lightning striking and then hearing thunder. Okay. So if lightning were to strike on the far sideline, okay, you would probably hear the thunder at the same time that it strikes. It's not that significant. If it was like,
well, here's
I
where
don't
I'm
know. In Yankee Stadium and it hits at Red Bull Arena, yes, there's going to be a significant difference, but I don't think it's going to happen from one sideline to the other. Now, some scientists can go and correct me if I am wrong.
Well, give me a chance to counter. I'm not a scientist, but the reason visual awareness in the game is so vital, all right, that especially in the attacking side of things, where if you tell me to turn and you're 30 yards away or 35 yards away, I've got a better chance of recognizing it, speed of light, with my vision. By the time you tell me to turn and it gets received, I've already maybe made the wrong choice. So there's visual acuity in the game of soccer is also speed of light versus speed of sound. And that's why.
Right, but now you're talking about getting an instruction, which also goes about several words, listening to it, and then reacting to it, as opposed to thud of a ball.
All right. It's a fun argument. And I understand what you're saying too, but I do, if there are subscribers to Sirius XM that are listening or watching, it's available on the app. You have an app. You can get an app if you have a subscription. In fact, if you just get the app, everybody's got my kids, they play their the radio. They in their car. They go. Everything's through their phone. They don't even
Yes.
put their radio or contraption on in their car. So get the app. It's much less expensive, and then you can hear all this serious stuff. But it is on the app. Search the Coaching Academy, and it's a pretty cool interview. And also talk to Ben Olsen, and talk to Ben about his painting. Right? Did you know that he's a painter? I think you do.
I had heard that. Yes, I had heard that, but I didn't hear that part of the show because when we left training, that part of the show had already.
Well, you can go back. You can go back on the app. Back and listen to it. So I shared this with him though too. Roberto, I get something in my inbox every day. It's called Nice News. What do you got? There's the app. Very nice, Roberto.
It's
lower left.
One of these.
Okay. Yeah, the big S. So I get something in my inbox, and I do share it with my family when I see something that makes sense to send them. It's called Nice News. So with all the not nice news that we receive in our lives on a daily basis, turn on the TV, whatever it is, right? There's a lot of not nice news, correct? So I get this nice news, and there's always like a nice story in it. So I shared this with Ben because he's a painter, and he did a lot of that during this 2-year hiatus between the DC United job and then getting Houston. Viewing art improves your mood. All right. Research has shown that looking at art, whether in a museum, gallery, or home, can benefit your mental health. Okay. And then this study was done where it can hold true for just viewing art online. So I told everybody go to Ben's Instagram because he's got a bunch of his artwork there. But it's also been, there was a study done where it said it can be a viable tool to support individuals' mood, anxiety, loneliness, and well-being. Just looking at art. How cool is that? I thought that was good. Isn't that nice?
Just who sponsored the survey? Was it the Metropolitan
Museum probably of New York
along with the Guggenheim?
Yeah, that was his line. And he also stayed in that because they played.
Smart kid.
They played at St. Louis, did Houston in the CCC. So he stayed in that same museum hotel. And he talked about the second floor. He said they had their team meals there, and he said that they did their activation warm up right in amongst the paintings at the museum. And one thing he said, he goes, "I have very little time to do anything outside of the realm of my job." But he said whenever he's in a city where he could just maybe take a few minutes, he goes to an art museum and just looks at the art, calms down, and then gets back to work watching.
Gets into a good mood.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
his team puts them in a good mood too. I mean, they are the US Open Cup champions.
They are,
and they won it in Miami. Well,
they did.
So
anonymous.
Go
ahead. Well, I was going to
say a couple of notes that we found out today. 250 New York City supporters will be down at Chase Stadium now. No longer Drive Pink. It's Chase Stadium. So they will be there. The temperature is supposed to be glorious for the game. The forecast right now for the game is it's going to be sunny all day long. The high of 77. Game time temperatures will be, it's a 7:30 start, right?
Yeah.
71 degrees. 70 degrees it's going to be. So it's going to be absolutely perfect. So
I get it. I get it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You're going to be able to wear short sleeves and everything.
All right.
And you're going to be on the outside within the fans.
Yeah. Let's take pictures. We'll take pictures and share them, where we're at our broadcast location. Sometimes we get to a stadium. Now, remember, Drive Pink or Chase now is one of these refurbished, put together in 2 weeks stadium.
I wouldn't call this one refurbished only because of the fact that Lockhart, which was there before, was totally raised. It was down to nothing.
All right.
They put this one up like an erector set in 9 months.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They don't have enough spots for all, but they have. And we were on a conference call with and give credit to Juan Pinzon and Luis, who got on with us to make sure that our areas were taken care of. We certainly appreciate that. So we'll give them.
They do a great job taking care of us. Seriously.
All right, this athletic survey. We're approaching an hour here, Roberto. So I want to make sure we're not going too crazy here. But the athletic survey of executives, anonymous survey. So here's what I got out of it, and we can't go through everything. and I wonder what you think. So one question was, and we're going to Miami, so we might as well bring this up, is Inter Miami, is their roster build good or bad? So that was asked of 30 sporting executives in Major League Soccer. 18 said good, 5 said good and bad, so they're waffling, and 4 just said outright bad. And one of the ones that said bad, here's the quote: "I think it's bad." "I really do," said one executive. "I think it's setting the league back. We fought a lot against the retirement league moniker, but now that's what people see, even in Miami with all their young talent. I don't like it." And then another executive said, "Depends on if we believe or don't believe it's cap compliant. I don't know which side of the fence I fall on." That is an MLS executive in one of the 29 MLS teams that believes that Miami might be cheating. So I'm just putting that out there.
I know. We've always wondered how they were able to fit 5 different players of the category that have come to Inter Miami with an MLS salary cap. And look, I'm not saying they're cheating. I don't know if they're cheating, but if, they deserve all sorts of credit for being able to figure out a way to be able to get all those players in. And then being able to get extraordinary, young players right from Argentina as well, to be able to come to the team and, and help them out. So, one of the things that I was looking at the other day, which are the youngest teams and which are the oldest teams and all of that. Inter Miami, I figured would be among the oldest teams, considering the fact that they got Messi, Jordi Alba, Luis Suarez, Busquets. Who am I missing? But no, they're, I believe, something like the 4th youngest. Now, New York City came out to be tied with the Red Bulls as the 2 youngest teams in the league, but Inter Miami wasn't that far away, a couple of years older than New York City and the Red Bulls.
Well, just to clarify too, when cap compliant, which was the question mark here, that has to go through the league. The league deems them cap compliant. So I think we should make that clear, that whoever that executive is maybe is not as trusting of MLS as some others are. Best player other than Messi. That was another survey question to the 30 sporting executives. Thiago Almada and Dennis Boanga, they tied for the and hard to argue those two, right?
Yeah, I agree.
One of the executives said Dennis Boanga is a effing killer. He
managed to negotiate himself a pretty damn good contract by wanting to leave, and then got a lot of money to stay with LAFC.
Best new coaching hires. So there were a number listed, but I just went to this quote from one of the executives. Phil Neville is one of the new coaching hires. He was sacked by Miami, but now is the coach of Portland. One of the executives said his choice was Phil Neville. "I think he's a good coach, and it's a good fit with Ned Grabavoy and the club. I also don't think he's full of shit, unlike some of the other new hires." That's what nice. I love about this survey. The quotes are the best. And so who do they think? John Herdman, some people think he's just a blowhard. Is he the one that they're referring to? Troy Lesesne has the biggest mouth in MLS. We've talked to referees. He's a rough guy in that technical area. We know for a fact that he's one of the guys that, if you're given a referee assignment, you're not unhappy if it's not DC United. Let's put it that way.
Or last year, the Red Bulls.
Or last year, the Red Bulls. So I'm not sure who exactly.
So anyway, I want to go a little bit to the survey, because the numbers or who they selected is pretty interesting. So what was the best coaching hire of the offseason? The winner was Laurent Courtois from Montreal. Dean Smith of Charlotte was number 2, tied with Troy Lesesne of DC United. John Herdman behind them. Eric Ramsey and Phil Neville tied behind them, and then Caleb Porter and Chris Armas. My eyes opened on Armas. It's
Yeah.
sort of like, really?
Well,
Okay. I hope
we're-
Chris Armas kills it in Colorado and proves us all wrong based on his track record so far.
Well, the
I
interesting
hope he
flip
really
side-
proves us all wrong.
the interesting flip side to that is there was a question in here about who had the best off season, and which team had the best off season, and Colorado, Chris Armas' side, got the most votes, 10 from the executive. So the pressure's on. It's like they did fill some nice holes, like a guy like Sam Vines at left back, that kind of thing. So they did all right. The other one I wanted to bring up, Roberto, and if you have something to add, U.S. Open Cup, yes or no? 20 out of the 30 said yes, and that is for the first teams of the clubs to be involved, not the two teams, not the MLS Next Pro teams. 20 said yes, 7 no, and then 3 refused to answer the question or did not vote or whatever. But that's an overwhelming majority that
absolutely
thinks that. Yeah, and you know what they feel? And I can mention David Lee's name here because this is something he said, and it makes sense. It's like, the thing the league, I think, should do is just let the teams decide. And, we've said that a 1,000 times. So, but let the teams decide how they'll handle that game and how they'll handle their roster and how they'll handle the congestion. Just let the teams decide.
So many of the executives who were polled here said something very interesting, which was, it's a trophy. We're here to win trophies, and we want to win trophies. So we want to compete for these things. So a lot of teams, obviously, by the results of the survey and the quotes, are not happy with the decision that only 7 teams got to play their first teams, and other teams that and some of them don't even want to play their first teams. And a lot of teams that did want to play their first teams didn't get a chance to. They were basically, they volunteered Army style. You doing this, you doing this. That's volunteering Army style.
Yep, the calls came in and you were told what you were doing by the league. Well, NYCFC 2 got off to a good start in the U.S. Open Cup up there in Montclair State last week, defeated FC Motown pretty handily, played really well. It was and we saw Carrizo and Arayave, and these guys put on a good performance. Jonathan Shore, Drew Baera, yeah. And then 3 of them were on the trip this weekend because the numbers were so small. They were never going to play unless it was an absolute emergency, but because they'd all played 90 minutes on Thursday. And that was one of the things Nick, was concerned with is, well, if you're going to make us play Saturday without 6 players, at least let us play this U.S. Open Cup game on Wednesday. So maybe a couple of these guys would be available. But from Thursday to Saturday, you can't risk it. And then next Tuesday, so Roberto, be there or be square at Belson Stadium. It's the Hudson River Derby 2 teams. Yeah, the Red Bulls are playing at New York City FC 2, Red Bull 2 against New York City FC 2 at St. John's University next Tuesday night.
I can go.
So, yeah, let's have some fun.
I'm looking at my schedule right now. I can go.
Okay.
All right. So we'll be there.
We're all happy about that. And if it's like last game, the entire first team staff will be there. We'll see. Maybe.
Well, let's see how many fans show up for this. Let's go, supporters. I want to see the supporters there.
I think it's going to be packed.
I mean, if all the New York City supporters, the official supporters, go to this game, they pack the stadium. Now we got to get there early enough to go have a nice Italian dinner again down the block.
Yeah, we'll go down the block. Our boys who are New York City holders. Let's do that. Well, that's I don't have much more, Roberto. Except we wanted to talk about the U.S. men. We promised last week we would, but man, here we are again into a little past the hour. But what would you like to say about the U.S. men?
The differences between the United States and Mexico are getting wider, and it's becoming a one-sided affair now. And Mexico is in real trouble because not only are they not playing better than they used to, they're not playing as well, but there doesn't seem to be many players, youth players coming up the system that are going to be able to change over that team. It's really to seeing a team that was as dominant in an area as Mexico was in CONCACAF for so many decades. Okay. They were like the one, and it was like nobody else. And to see them fall the way they're falling is in a way, it's sad. I mean, I know a lot of U.S. fans are quite happy because, El Tri fans have been, sometimes they mouth off a little bit. So they're eating a lot of humble pie now. So the United States has not lost to El Tri in 7 straight. The last time they lost was in a friendly over here at the Meadowlands, 3-0. That was the last time. That was in 2019. And the differences are only getting wider. And it will continue to be this way. And I don't know. It's not going to be easy for Mexico. They're gonna get toasted in Copa America. That's going to be this summer. And you hope that they're able to find, some good young players that is going to be able to maybe help this team and, a generation change. The thing that's very interesting is that when the United States failed, right, and it was a failure not to qualify for Russia in 2017, the only player left from that team that played in Cuba, Trinidad, Tobago is Christian Pulisic. Everybody else is gone. Nobody else is there. It's Christian Pulisic, and that's it. Okay? You look at Mexico. Now, they failed getting out of the group in Qatar. Now, that's a lot closer, right? Now we're talking about end of 2022, right, when that happened. So it's a year and change. But in the lineup that they played against the United States after they beat Panama 3-0, and, they thought that they're going to be, here we go again, we're good, and they played the United States and they got played off the field, right? They had 8 players, 8 of the same players that didn't qualify out of their group in Qatar. So they haven't really figured out that they really need to start letting other players start. And even if they take a beating, I remember after Cuba and, they got rid of, who was
Bruce
coach
Arena.
for the U.S.
Bruce Arena.
It was
Bruce
Bruce,
Arena.
right? Yes. And then the United States started basically using their U23 team. And they started everybody playing together and playing all these important games. And they all basically learned how to play together. Now, you can have your thoughts on how they play under Berhalter right now, if they're offensive enough or not. I thought that he put out about the best lineup he could have selected against Mexico. There was no qualms after a bad game against Jamaica.
Right. And Gio Reyna really emerging as really the lone player. I can't think of anybody else that can attack and lead an attack against a low block, which has been something that the U.S. just has struggled with. Teams across the world struggle with attacking against a low block, but he can do the things that can beat that. But my takeaway from the whole semifinal final, and this is possible. It's possible that Greg Berhalter was 30 seconds away from getting the sack.
Yes.
You lose to Jamaica, and I was with people who were watching that game, and they were like, "This is as bad as it gets," because Jamaica
played
was missing
horribly.
But Jamaica was also missing players, and Berhalter had his whole stock. So he may well have come within 30 seconds. The own goal by Corey Burke, executing the corner. Miles Robinson got to the front post. It probably wasn't intended for him, but he was there and he did the right thing. And so you earned that goal. But it happened, past the minimum stoppage time. And then, the whistle blew, the full whistle blew. And that was it for Jamaica because they couldn't take another step, those guys. But isn't that interesting? And then just completely dominating Mexico with a really wonderful performance and that stinging goal by Tyler Adams, which Jesse Marsh after the game was pretty funny. He said, "Yeah, I've rolled him." Jesse worked with Tyler. Tyler was 15 years old when he was signed. He was in the academy, played USL, and then played with the first team. But Jesse Marsh talked about rolling the ball out to him 100 times in that same spot, and he never hit a shot like that. So it was. But it's really, that to me is wild because that's a great performance. Berhalter was your coach for that. He was also your coach for this thing, and it's possible he might not have made it.
And now he's like cemented, okay? Because now you start looking at his numbers, right? And so in 69 matches as a coach, 43 wins, 14 losses, 12 ties, okay? In competitive matches, meaning World Cup qualifying, Gold Cup, etc., 28, 7-7. Okay, so that makes him a 750, 75% winning percentage, which is highest among head coaches with at least 8 matches, right? And then you go
among what coaches? Among American coaches?
Oh, yeah, American coaches,
Okay.
right? And then in knockout round matches, right? Win or go home, 10-3. Okay, which ties him for the most wins with Bob Bradley, who's 10-4, so he has a better record than that. You start looking at that, and then you go, well, how do you fire him? How do you fire him after that? And you can't. And if he plays the way that they played against Mexico, right, where they absorbed pressure for the first 5 minutes. They were playing in Azteca North, which is AT&T Stadium in Dallas. It was 59,000 people, of which 54,000 were, pro-Mexico, 5,000 or so pro the U.S. It was a home game for Mexico. The U.S. absorbed pressure for the first 5 minutes without really being in any sort of danger. And then they just took the game to them. They just held possession. They did what they wanted to do. They were the ones who were recycling and coming back and going forward. And I've never really seen that from the U.S. The U.S. normally likes to sit back, wait for Mexico to pressure, and then use their superior athletic skills and counterattack. That's normally the way they play. They just took the game to Mexico, and Mexico had no answer. They had 2 chances, both weak shots that Matt Turner could have saved with his eyes closed because they basically hit him. Meanwhile, Ochoa allowed 2 goals and also had to make 3 really hard saves to be able to, not prevent this from becoming a laugher. But as far as the way that the game was played, there was one team on the field. And I'm sorry to say, if Mexico plays the U.S. 4 different times, that's going to happen probably at least 3. And for people to say, well, if they would have played it in Azteca, it's a different story. Well, here's the deal on that. The last 4 games played in Azteca, the U.S. has tied 3 and won 1. Mexico hasn't beaten the U.S. in Estadio Azteca since 2009. That's 15 years. So take them to Azteca. U.S. doesn't care.
All right.
The difference between both nations is huge right now. Right now, Mexico can make an argument you can make an argument that Mexico may not be as good as Canada, and they're somewhere similar to Jamaica, because those are some of the top teams in CONCACAF right now, okay? I think that's their level right now. But the U.S., they're not near. They're not near the U.S. right now. And I don't know when they will be, but it's going to be a while, because I don't see anybody coming up through that system who seems to be talented enough to be able to take the starting positions of the guys who are there who aren't doing much, are not doing much.
Well, with Berhalter, you think you beat Mexico as often as he has, and you think they would throw him a parade, but as opposed to the critics. And you're right, Copa America. I mean, is he safe if it's a Copa America disaster? I think the way the team played leading into Copa America, there's the Brazil, and I'm forgetting the other match, but Brazil is one of the quote unquote friendlies before Copa America, and that's going to be mighty interesting too. All right, Roberto. Well, look, good stuff, man. I want to leave you with this, that I want you to expose yourself to online art for improved mood, anxiety, loneliness, and just overall well-being. I think we should all do it.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to go to a museum. We seem to have those in New York.
Yeah.
By the way, the best place to go to museums, best
DC.
place in the world? Huh?
DC.
No.
DC.
DC is very good. But here, this is why sometimes you're limited to this geo region.
Or Paris. Paris.
The city that has the most museums in the world is Mexico City. And you should go. And they are fantastic.
Well, take me. And then
Let's
you can
go.
help. And then you can help me communicate, because I won't be able to communicate very
God.
well. All right. Well, look, we're done. We're going to have our broadcast coming up on Saturday, 7:15 airtime for both Roberto and myself on the Spanish and the English New York City FC Network, NYCFC app, the TuneIn app, and hopefully you'll get on board with syncing the audio to the video, and we'll have a good old time on Saturday as New York City travels to Inter Miami. So for Roberto Abramowitz, I'm Glenn Crooks. Have a great night, everybody. NYCFC Views.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.